Welcome. Tonight is, let's start off different. I want to introduce you to my heart. So if you would, before we do the treatment, we'll settle in with this. Find your seat, quick as you can, Jane. Oh, darling. I love that about you. I'll wait till you find your seat.
Oh, I see. Okay. Hi. I thought I did.
So everybody just kind of relax into it. We'll close your eyes. I'll wait for you, Jane.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I'm gonna light in a second. Going down in opposite Okay.
Okay. Now we can start. And we begin by connecting at the point of our hearts. Not simply the organs that pump blood through our bodies, but that point at the center of our beingness. That place where we find that inner presence, that divine presence, that thing that we call love, or God, or perfection, or whatever else we choose to call it. It's at that place that we find the truth. So what better place to connect and to know the truth than at the point of our hearts. And from that place, we know that there is something extraordinary happening right here and right now on this sacred ground, in this sacred space. There is an awakening, a quickening, a fulfilling of destiny as we join together in consciousness to explore the meaning of life. And we celebrate that exploration, this connection that we create to span the universe, inwardly and outwardly, to seek truth and to live our lives more fully in the light of Spirit. So with this knowing, we simply begin our time together in laughter and love, knowing the truth of who we are as best we can right here and right now. And knowing that that continues to grow and expand in every moment, in every way. And we let it be in gratitude and love, the perfection of this time. And together we say, so it is. I'll give you a little report on Barbara. She's doing extraordinarily well. She's complaining so much less. And she's looking good. She was compelled to this thing that she's doing by the idea that it would eliminate unwanted cells on her face. And actually, it's been proven that that's what's happening. So she's conferred with other people that have had similar needs. And the beauty of this is that it is also a beauty treatment. And that she's actually lost a lot of the marks and wrinkles and things that were there. And her skin is just so smooth and beautiful. Still red, but in a few days that'll be gone. And by next Sunday she should look magnificent for you. So she's looking forward to that. So here we are, without her tonight. to continue this exploration. Pardon me?
How's Lynn doing?
Lynn is doing well too. Lynn's getting feisty. She had good news from concerning her injuries. She when I saw her ring, it was on this hand, her ring finger and this finger were black and blue and swollen. And she said that the doctor's telling her from the X-rays that they're in perfect alignment. There's really nothing to do except let them just recover. And I did hear something about she may have to have some surgery. I'm not sure on what though. I think she did bang her knees, so it may be a knee that she's having to have worked on it. But all in all, I think she's fine under the circumstances. Excuse me?
Is she at home or not?
I think she's at home, yeah.
And she got $900 off of her deductible as well, of course. She manifested money in the entire.
No doubt, because if anyone can manifest money, it would be Lynn Bell. So, she is I'm sure Lynn wouldn't care that I tell you this, she's a faithful tither. And anybody that tithes know that the tithe benefits the people that she tithes to. And she tithes extraordinarily well to the center, and we benefit from that. But truly the benefit of tithing is for the tither. And because she has been able to do extraordinary things with money in her life. And go places and experience things. And that's because of her discipline around that. I mean, she often just shows up in the middle of the week saying, money came in, here's my tithe. So with that kind of attitude, I'm not a bit surprised that money really works for her. So, yay. So Barbara's good, Lynn's good, we're good. And here we are in, which class is this? Class 4. Barbara gave me all of her preparation notes for tonight. But it does say on one of the lines that I should read pages 37 to 54 in Creative Mind. How many of you are actually reading Creative Mind? Good. Are listening to it. Yeah, somebody today requested the CDs. Is that person in the room? They called today and wanted the CDs? Too much trouble to stop by class, I guess. Okay. Well, I haven't read this book for years, and so I read pages 37 to 54, and I had a great time with it. And there's so much material here to talk about. So those of you that did read it, you're one up on everybody else, but at the same time, I think there are things that must be spoken of here in this class as we begin tonight. And it starts with the perfect universe on page 37, and it says, the one who desires to heal must stop seeing, reading about, discussing, or listening to conversation about sickness. Wow! Who does that?
We do.
Most people on the planet do not. Most people on the planet want to tell you all about their ailments. They want to tell you where it hurts, why it hurts, how long it's hurt, who did it, because it certainly wasn't them. And all the other issues. I always found whatever the ailment, whatever the condition that we don't want, we are such experts on it. You know, and the first sign of something, the first symptom, now you can go Google it. And learn about all the symptoms. And then you can get a medicine that has more side effects than the illness you've got. I actually timed it the other night. There was some drug they were pushing on TV, and the side effects took longer to say than the whole spiel about how good this drug was for whatever it did. I thought, well, there you go. You know? So the idea he's pointing at is, of course, the point of this course, of this teaching, of this movement, is that what you think about is what you create. And if you put the issues of sickness into your consciousness by discussing them or reading them or thinking about them in any way, you will manifest them. None of us are exempt. None of us. And it's not just illness. It's everything. Everything. What we think about is what we create. And there's some great quotes I want to get to, but I'm compelled to go ahead and do my confession for tonight. I've had no trouble at all with Barbara needing some convalescent time. I've fed her. I've gotten things for her. I've plumped her up. I've given her rice bags that are heated up for her to be comfortable. I love to do that stuff. But someday I have to take care of the dogs. And that includes the project that she started before she had her procedure, it didn't get finished, called an invisible fence around this property. And suddenly, this thing that I had no interest in is my project. And rather than just going with it, I complained. I complained about how much work these dogs are, about everything that they do that annoys me. I put all this energy into talking about how this wasn't working for me. So what happened?
It really didn't.
Anything you could think of having to do with dogs went wrong. The project with the invisible fence is not complete. It works sometimes. It was put in the wrong areas. Some of it's up above ground where it shouldn't be. Trips to Home Depot, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. All of this. And then it culminated yesterday when Barbara let the dogs out after we were done here, right? And so I went around to the front and the dogs come flying by me, going over the center. So I'm walking over there with them and we see some people and it's all fine. And then there's this lovely little 2-year-old standing out in the front going, hi. And the dogs go, yeah! And I managed to keep the massacre from happening. But in so doing, getting the dogs without leashes by the collar back to the house, one of them went berserk and twisted my finger, and all last night this was black and blue and swollen and painful. The dogs didn't do that. I did that. My attitude. I did that. Once I figured out what was going on, it's gotten much better, you know. So, we do this. In fact, on the same page, a thing about sickness, Holmes writes, our environment will reflect what we are. Not at our best for the few minutes of silence, meaning when we meditate or perhaps treat, but in the long run of our ordinary life and thought. That's what creates our environment. Our environment is not static. It is not separate. It is not something that we simply walk into and are imposed with. We create it. We create the occurrences of our lives. We do it all day long. And the normal person, the normal average human being on planet Earth, sees this such a logical occurrence. It was a problem. I saw it, and sure enough, I suffered through all of it. And the next time that happens, it's going to be the same way or worse. People think that way. They plan on their lives being that way. And then what do they live? Miserable lives. So how do we get out of this trap, this three-dimensional time-space continuum trap where we think it's happening to us, and instead allow it to happen as us? By changing what we think. It's really that simple. This is not a complicated teaching. The thing is, it's also not an easy teaching because doing it the way we've always done it has gotten us to where we are. And if we're suffering through it, if there's a great deal of pain and discomfort and confusion and upset and all the other stuff that we say we don't want, it's going to come if we play our game that way. If we look outside of ourselves and say, that's the world, that's the way it is, I'll have to suffer through. It's not that way. Now some of us get to the point where we'll stop thinking that we don't have a role in this, and we'll kind of concede that maybe somehow we play a minor role in it. Then what happens? Then sometimes things are nice. And then the thing happens. Oh my God, what am I going to do now? This horrible thing has happened. I got fired. The doctor gave me some prognosis that's terrible. My beloved partner left me or died or whatever it is. And what do? We fall apart. We think we can't handle it. We can't do it. Rockenberg was the one that explained the difference between pain and suffering. We're all going to experience pain. That's part of the human experience. We have a body with all these nerve endings. We have an emotional body with all of these states of being. We're going to feel pain. Suffering, however, is pain that we think is not going to end. And that puts us in a desperate state because we're suffering. We're suffering. And we don't know how to get out of it. And when we're in that state, all is lost, at least for the moment. So how do you get out of that? The same thing. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Are you aware that you have absolute control of your feelings? Some people watch their feelings, they observe them, they keep notes, they keep logs on what emotion they were experiencing, hoping that something will be revealed from that magical, mystical thing called emotions. It doesn't work that way. You're creating your emotions. When you get mad, it's you. It's not that thing you're pointing at. It's you. You choose to get mad. You choose to have your feelings hurt. You choose to fail. You choose to be miserable. You choose to feel lost and hopeless. Blah. That's you. But the good news about this is that if you're happy and joyous and peaceful and making a difference in the world, that's you. It's the same thing. There's no distinction. I can't help, some people argue with me on this point, but I absolutely believe that there's nothing in the universe that is compelling us to move forward with our lives except us. I just don't think there's some outside higher power, there's no environment, there's no anything out there that's beckoning us to be better. It's only us. We're it. We're the source. Right? God at the point of us is the source. And there's nowhere else to go. I was at a Religious Science International ministers meeting down in Fort Lauderdale a few years ago. Quite a few years ago, actually. And a wonderful group from Unity in New York had come down to entertain us. And they were singing this lovely song that help is on the way. And it was just a catchy song. And they sang it. And they sang it with harmonies. It was just great. And then the minister that was speaking after that song got up and said, "You all need to know that no one's coming." No one's coming. It's up to us to know the truth of who we are. Doesn't matter the circumstance. There is nothing outside that can save us from ourselves. We have to choose to be that source. That's our work. That's the practice. Let's see what else this man had to say that just dazzled me. He says that we come to see all as the divine ideas. Stop all negative thought, he says. Think only of what you want and never about what you do not want. That's not so easy. Because that thing we don't want, we probably already created in a big way in our lives. So if it's financial, somebody's calling wanting payment and we don't know where the money is. Or if it's about an issue with our bodies, the doctor said this is real, and we give such power to doctors. I mean, they're amazing people, and I really appreciate their skills. However, the idea of just giving in to a doctor, it seems absolutely absurd. I just got back a few weeks ago from Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman's memorial service. She was 94 when she passed. When she was in her 30s, a doctor told her she had 6 months to live. How'd that work out? Yeah. That was enough time for her to realize that there had to be another way to think about her life. And so literally tens, if not hundreds of millions of people that she touched happened during a time that she was supposed to be dead. Pretty good, huh? She can do it, anybody can do it. That's just the way it works. So we don't give the power of knowing who we are or what we're to do out. We don't give that away outside of ourselves, no matter how well accredited someone is with degrees and such. In fact, there's a place in here where Holmes talks about denial. I personally don't use denials in my work. I don't say this is not so. It's an old-timey way of doing it, and I can see the point, but to me that puts my attention on what I don't want. If I'm denying that I have a cold, I'm sneezing, and I spend time denying that I have a cold, I'm focused on the cold. I would rather focus on being healthy. And denying something is not the same as knowing that something is the other way. It's only halfway there. So I don't even give that any energy. Although Holmes says in here, don't tell anybody how to do this. Some people really work well with denials. And it's true in neuro-linguistic programming that they have shown that there are two kinds of people in the world. There are people who move towards something, and there are people that move away from something. Now, I've studied that a bit and talked with people and examined how that works in people. And what I see is that people that move away from something are focused on it as they're trying to get away from it. Rockenberry used to say to me, if you want to experience that, tie a rope around a tree and take the end of the rope and pull as hard as you can, scream at that tree to let go. You're putting a lot of energy into it, not getting very far. But if you'll let go and turn away from it, it doesn't bother you a bit. So I don't use denials, but Holmes says that some people use them effectively, and that's fine. If you insist on that, if you're really a move away from person, and it feels really good to say, I don't have a cold, then you must replace it by saying what you do have. Because if you go halfway, someone actually ran into Barbara's car the other day. One of the cars out there, the Nissan, the dog's cars, we'll call it. Because it's the only one the dogs are allowed. Her car rolled down from a parking lot up here by the sanctuary and rolled into the back of the Nissan. And she came out and said, I've been saying, this is the third thing that's happened to me in 2 weeks, and every time I say it's not real. You can say it's not real, but what is real? You've got to talk about what is real. That's moving towards something. What's real for you? So if you put your energy on what's real for you, I think you've got to get to where you want to go a lot faster than trying to talk about what isn't real or what you don't want. Everybody, we all know what we don't want. We know what in our lives we'd like to go away. But focusing on them doesn't get them to go away. You really have to turn that around. What else does he say? This isn't going to take long. I noticed in the middle of this we moved into part 2, practice. And now I got excited. Because maybe there's something here to do. And that's where he talks about denials. Interesting, even though he talks about affirmations. Barbara talked about affirmations last week?
Yeah, that was our homework.
Yeah, so here's what Holmes says about this. He says, we do not analyze, dissect, affirm, or deny. We know. That's a good point. Although affirmation is a wonderful term and it's a good exercise and it gets you loose on looking at how you'd like your life to be, it is a valuable tool. The truth is, until you believe what you're affirming, it won't happen. But by believing in it, and I'm not sure how this works. I really don't know how it works, but there's something about it. You can say it till the cows come home, but it'll only shift in your reality and in your environment when you really believe it. And you go, well, I don't believe it yet. Well, that's no reason to stop. Keep saying it till you do believe it. Holmes would go into his study, and he would be in there all night treating for someone. And the only reason he would continue treating for hours was because he didn't believe it yet. You know, there was still some element of doubt going on, and he would not leave it until he had resolved that in his mind. So you work it, and you work it, and you work it until you're satisfied. And that can be exhausting. But you'll get the result you're looking for. When you've absolutely convinced yourself that it's so, something shifts, something wonderful happens. And that's what you're looking for. Which means, you know, bless us all, we have these wonderful senses to use in physical form in this three-dimensional world. And they're very helpful in moving our body around. But they seem to work so contrary to us creating the lives we want. Because we keep seeing in that environment things that signal to us that we're not getting what we want. Whatever, however that looks, whatever it is, you know what it is for you. So when that happens and you get frustrated, or you become resigned to it, or you doubt yourself, you're working contrary to where you want to be. So that has to be your work. And trust me, I've been there. I know how hard this is. I know how you have to just, it's a surrender. You have to let go of all of that stuff that keeps happening, that keeps being talked about, that keeps showing up in your face. I had people screaming at me that I should quit being the president of this organization. I should set it all down. And I just was numb to it. And I said, what do I do? How do I move away from this? Because we're all kind of looking and going, yeah. And I said, this is a forgiveness thing. There's something I'm not resolved from. I've forgotten who I am. And it's funny, the higher you go in a hierarchy, the more volatile you are to that kind of thing. You know, if you sit in the back row and never talk to anybody and never do anything, probably nobody is never going to have to give you a hard time about anything because you pretty much got that handled. But if you're going to stand up in front of people and hold a significant office and do significant work, there's going to be people that just think you're not the right person. And nobody's exempt.
Show me someone who's ever been president of the United States that everybody thought should be president of the United States. No such thing. And usually the people that think they shouldn't be are pretty powerful people. So that's the way the system works. Who is that bishop? The big man. Bishop somebody. He's on TV a lot. He's this big black man, and I can't think of his name right now, but he had this great line. He says, you haven't made it until someone has betrayed you. You haven't really made it in the world until somebody has betrayed you. And it made for an interesting thought. Maybe that's part of the process, is that we have to be targets at times. If we're going to play a big game, we're going to be a target. That's part of the game. So I really just went to work on me, finding the God in these people that were attacking me, and finding the God in me. And in the midst of all that, with endless writing how much I forgive myself and I forgive them and doing whatever I had to do, it all just went away. All those people are gone. I mean, they're still around, but they're not in my face anymore. They didn't leave the organization, but they sure left anywhere I was. So I'm quite happy with the way things worked out. And do I think that I had something to do with that shift? Yes, I had something to do with that problem, and everything to do with that problem. I had unresolved stuff that needed to be dealt with. So in essence, here's a way to always look at your problems in a way that will support you. Your problems are God. They're God showing up to get you to admit and realize who you are. That you're God too. And they are God in a way that's saying, come on, wake up. I'm kicking your butt. Wake up. Yay. And if you do, they go away. Because that's their only real purpose. Yes, David.
I agree to go away, but I think they leave something behind, which is an experience of accomplishment or confidence.
Sure.
And
That's your memories of them.
Yeah, I mean, you see yourself in a situation that before would have appeared maybe unmanageable, undoable, and then you managed it and done it, and it's, oh, not so bad anymore.
Of course, so you get an experience out of every circumstance, but that's part of it as well. But in the moment that it's happening, we suffer.
Yeah.
We suffer with the diagnosis, we suffer with the condition, we suffer with the circumstance. And then when it goes away, we have a memory, and if we're paying attention, we're remembering that clearly we were more powerful than it was.
Right.
And it's not an ego statement, it's just a reality that we are the presence of the divine. All of us, without exception. And that person that was screaming at me was the presence of the divine, calling me to wake up. Wonderful. That doesn't mean that I'm seeking that person out to go to lunch with him. But I bless him and I honor him for his journey. He was a gift to me on that day when that happened. Thought.
Can I just give a real life example?
Sure.
Let's see what you do. Right before I came here, you know, I've got all this energy in me right now, and I wanted to call my friend and say, "Rawr," you know, something to dissipate it. I had done a workshop for somebody, and this is what I'm doing, and all about it, and focus and all this, and I sent this outline to this man, because I kind of trusted him, you know, I had done some work from before. And he said, basically, without going into details, I just talked to somebody, and they're gonna come in once or twice a week and do this thing, and I felt like I had handed him my entire, everything I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, you know, and there was no sign of any of this before, so I was really angry, I felt upset about this, you know, like, God dang it, you know, you can't wait, and all this stuff's going on. My mind went back to, this has happened to me before, people have stolen ideas from me, how do you do this and not give them away, and so I've created that, and I've jumped back to that energy. How do you, and I get this, but you know, in the moment, when all that adrenaline's running, and I've poisoned my body with hemlock,
Sure,
basically,
right.
from my mind, and where my history that I haven't, whatever. What do you do because I'm really over the suffering thing. I don't wanna stay there any longer than I have to, and I'm
Right.
sure I won't have a friend in the world if I call my best friends every time something like this happens, and
No, you need to resolve this one time and then use that for the rest of your life. You're
So-
absolutely right.
so how do you just, do you throw paint at the wall
No,
or
no, no,
spaghetti
no, no, no.
or?
You have to create a context.
Okay.
What's going on here. I worked for early on, when I was still in Houston, I went to work for a short time for a company that made light signs. I forget what they're called, but they were matrices of light that you could have pictures and such. They were very expensive, and banks were into them back then. And I would go around, we had an artist that would make these beautiful drawings of what their sign could look like and this kind of thing. And I remember taking one to somebody and then thanking me for it, telling me they'd get right back to me. When I called them back, they said, yeah, we decided to go with a different company.
Oh,
And I just paid for all your artwork to get that made, right? And that was okay with them. Man, that stuff happens all the time. We've got a member of this community that went into real estate, took somebody out 3 days, showed him everything, and then said, okay, this is one you want. He says, yeah, I think I'm gonna get this one, but you know, I've got a friend that's gonna get the deal together for me. You know, those kind of things are happening all the time. The distinction is that you can't protect yourself from that. What you have to be is more powerful than those circumstances. You gotta know that what you're offering is not in a booklet. It's not in a bunch of papers. It's you. You're the thing. Your ability is what makes it so powerful. Nobody can take your stuff and go out there and replicate you. They can't.
No, but one of the things he said was, and he had basically found someone who lives across the street and
Right.
said, she's doing exactly what you said.
Great. You think
And
she
I'm
can do
like,
your stuff?
That's what I wanted to say.
You can't.
Excuse me, this is my whole life, that you're, you know.
Do you want to do business with this person?
Ah.
Do you?
No, it
Of
just.
course not.
I want the rug or something, you know.
No,
Just-
listen to you. You're caught in the loop, and it's not serving you. It's not serving you even a little bit.
Yeah, I know that's why I brought it up, I thought maybe you could help me pull
Well,
myself.
I'm working on it, but you're kind of staying in the thing, the hamster loop. We want you to get off there and look at this. Nothing's wrong.
Okay,
Nothing's bad that has happened here. This is not your client,
okay.
okay? You know, if he's gonna screw you, he's gonna screw her. He's gonna mess up with that too. And she's going to be probably having done the work and then there's no money for it. You know? So, you wanna play in that game? No, this is great. You haven't put much energy at all into this. You gave him some of your stuff, but he can't use it. And she can't use it.
Right,
It's you.
right.
It's your stuff.
Okay.
So just move on to the next one, because it's probably the next one that's gonna be great. And it's gonna give you business and you're gonna do some great work on it. Does that make sense? Can you resonate with that?
I can resonate with that.
What'd you learn from this guy? Without judging him, you cannot judge him in your response. What'd you learn from him?
I learned to be aware of what I'm sending people.
Right?
I learned not to fall too easily into la la land.
Right?
Because I like people.
Right.
And I learned how my need to be an individual and special and my attachment to my own selfness in this was easily triggered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for
I think
you.
that's
So
really
take all that and with your next client, you don't need to be more protected. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for bringing yourself to the table. It's not about your stuff. You have materials, and that's wonderful. But it's the presentation of those materials, the use of them, that makes a difference. They will get no good value out of them. And if they do, you can sue them.
With a smile.
But you won't, probably. You'll be too busy making money.
Thank you.
Okay? Is that better? You feel different, don't you?
I do feel different.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, you've got a wonderful product, a wonderful gift that you bring to the world. Nobody else can bring your gift. Good for you. I don't care what the person across the street does. They cannot take your stuff and make it work. They can only do their own. Good for you.
And I don't need to say it. I have this horrible, I want to say it, or like
Say it here.
and Thank you.
Because if you call him and say it, he's just gonna laugh at you. He doesn't care. He doesn't even know who you are. You're gonna work with people that do know who you are.
Well, what about the saying though? You know what, like, do you need to say?
That's all ego-based.
Yeah,
You really don't need to.
Yeah.
You need to be centered in this. You need to know it. You're gonna say it to someone, say it to yourself.
Thank you.
Say it to yourself 1,000 times, because that's the only place it's gonna make a difference. Out there, it's just, they don't care.
Well, and Ernest says in this latest group that we started reading, the work that you should be doing is not on the outside, that everything that you're doing, that you're trying to shift has to be done on the inside.
And the things we want to do on the outside, and so those kind of circumstances that create alliances, and forgive me, but we do this. We want somebody to feel sorry for our pain that we're going through. And that is the exact opposite of what we need. We need people to see how cool we are, how capable we are, how magnificent we are. That's where we'll get support. But we don't want to be talking about our problems. You needed to bring that. That was a really good example. But staying in that is just like losing. You don't want to lose. You want to win. And that's not a place to win. So you clearly got that. Let's go to this one. Let's see what's here. And it
There are
doesn't-
moments in there where it feels like a war, because I know of this, you know, like, I'm going, okay, what's the positive in this? What did I learn from this? How is this serving me? You know, how do I, and then there's that other, you know, just want to call him and say, don't you dare use my materials now, or, you know, or give me
How much
away.
time did you put in on this particular project?
Not
This
a-
guy?
Not a lot, really.
Not a lot. You don't really have a big investment. But if you did have an investment, we wouldn't put a dollar amount on it. $500 of your time at the prime rate?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you have paid to go to a seminar $500 to learn those things? Yes, you would have. See, you got it on a discount. You went on a scholarship. Good for you. That's wonderful. These are gifts, I swear they are. Everything's a gift, we just have to see it.
I got tired of saying that. Oh, this is wonderful. Isn't this great?
I'm not telling you it's wonderful. A lot of things we need to learn are not fun, but they're really important. And these lessons are really important.
Not fun, but the gift.
Yeah, gifts, you know, gifts come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. These two dogs are a gift in my life. Don't always feel good, but they are. Yeah. Who else had their hand up back there? Yes.
This whole exchange was reminding me of, a lot of times I think we think that if a circumstance doesn't go well with our interaction with someone, that when they interact with someone else, that it's better. And the reality is, a lot of times, it's worse. And I had a circumstance like that happen a number of years ago where it's a very complicated relationship and it had a lot of drama. And I happened to talk to someone else who had a key relationship with this person. And they were involved with him later. And it was like so much more dramatic and so much worse. And in my imagination, I always would put it on me. And I couldn't see, I couldn't see the circumstances until I realized that part of this whole thing is this fantasy that you think that they establish an ideal business relationship and or whatever, and in reality, it's just like you said. They probably cheated the person or whatever. They bring those same qualities into that next relationship.
People tend to be true to their nature. So if they'll do it with one person, they'll usually do it with many other people. And that isn't to judge them. That's simply to observe how people interact with others. In fact, that's a tool to stab judgment. When you observe that someone tends to lie or cut corners or cheat or do something, rather than being indignant going, oh, that person's just terrible. They're not terrible. They're true to their nature, just like everybody else is. And when you know what their natural way of doing things are, now you're in charge. You choose if you want to deal with that person. You know what works and what doesn't work. You know, yes, they could surprise you and change. They really could, and they could suddenly become ethical or whatever it is that you're dealing with there. But probably not. So just expect that from them. And don't get mad at them. Why would you get mad at them? You know, they've done this to me again and again, I'm so mad. Well, if they've done it again and again, who should you get mad at? Not them, they're consistent. You know, there are people that are just that way. God bless them. Don't do business with them. Don't relate to them. Don't have relationships with them. For God's sake, don't go to bed with them. Susan.
I learned years ago, I used to hear Eric go to work say it over and over, and it's a wonderfully repetitive lesson for me, that when I hear myself say to me, that's a fish hook. And the fish hook, if you know with that barb on it, you put it in and then you can't pull it out without ripping flesh. And so they didn't do that to me, they did that. And to me is whatever I'm making.
Exactly, exactly. That class that we do for everyone that comes into our center is all about what am I making this mean? What am I making this mean? Because I'm making it mean something. Yeah, so, and it can be benign things. We judge people all the time. The way they dress, the way they speak, the way they stand, the way they don't do the things that you want them to do. As Edwin says, the only time you ever have to forgive somebody is because they don't do things the way you would want them to do it, right? One of my colleagues, David Berger, who always comes to conventions and conferences dressed in suits and, you know, to the nines, came on stage with his shirt untucked out of his jeans, a big hole in one of the knees of the jeans, with a coffee cup, and you don't bring a coffee cup onto a stage. And he looked at all of us in the room, 500 of us, and said, what you are thinking of me right now is creating something in your life. And he was right. What you're thinking of me right now is creating something in your life. How's that working for you? You know? So, obviously we don't, when we find people that we do not resonate with, we do not want to have a relationship with, we don't go to war with them, just turn away from them like any other condition. You know, bless them, wish them well, always wish them well. I don't know your name. Who we've been talking to for the last few minutes, who's not looking at me right now.
Oh, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, right? Elizabeth, do not condemn this man. Bless him and wish him well. Because whatever you put out for others is what comes back to you. Not from him, but from life. So wish him well. Do your forgiveness work, let the guy go. And take your lessons, be grateful, and move on. And have a great experience with the next one, whoever that is. Okay?
Thank you.
You betcha. Thank you for bringing that to us. That was great. That was great. Let's see what else Ernest Holmes says that I want to share with you. In practice. Here we go. He says, we do not analyze, direct, affirm, or deny. We know. I think I already read that one. Glasses on, do this well. We cannot make affirmations for 15 minutes a day and spend the rest of our time denying the thing which we have affirmed, and affirming the thing which we have denied, and obtaining the results. We will not obtain the results that we seek. That's so true. Now, every morning I get up and I do treatment work. I have my spiritual practice. And my spiritual practice is really important to me. I bless Barbara, and I bless myself, and I have lists of, some of you are on that. It's wonderful. Some of my colleagues in other parts of the world are on it, and their communities, and I have these wonderful thoughts about all that. But if I got up from my chair after I did all that good work and grumbled about something, I just spit on all the good work I've done. It's not why. It doesn't work that way. If you're going to do spiritual, I love doing spiritual practice first thing in the morning because it sets my day and holds me in that place that I belong. And it's true, during some of the time Barbara's been sick, I've been remiss on doing my spiritual practice, which has added to the challenge that I have created in my life. When I don't do my treatment in the morning and do it according to my standard, I suffer. So it's really important for me to do that. And every so often I don't. Something happens and I don't. And I pay a price for that. You know what? You're saying, well, John, you're making that up by saying that. You betcha I am. I'm keeping it. Because Because if I don't do my treatment work in the morning and clear my head and know the truth of who I am and those around me and live my life from that place of enthusiasm, I should be punished. And I'm glad about that. That works for me. Oh, absolutely. If I get lazy and don't do that important work, my day can fall apart, and you know what? That's exactly what I deserve. And I'm going to play it that way because that's my incentive to get up in the morning and saying, let's do our treatment, Barbara. Let's do our work. And we do. And it's wonderful. It's never bad. And I've gotten it down to where my day goes with that. From that time of seeing life in that beautiful, elegant, wonderful way, that's what sets my day. And when I don't do it, and I get something less than that, I created that too. You know, and that's okay. Because that's my incentive to get up and do it. How many of you do spiritual practice? Okay, good. Some of those were tentative, but that's okay. How many of you do it in the morning? How many do it at night? Okay, some people, it's just the way you're made. It's best for you to do it before you go to sleep. Good for you. Then you wake up with it, right? That's lovely. And some people do it morning and night. Some people say they do it all day long. Yeah. What do you want to share?
So I have to say, because, you know, so many people say that it's so important to do it in the morning because it sets your whole day and blah, blah, blah. And I've tried and I just always fail. Like, I'm just not.
What time do you go to bed?
Like between midnight and 3.
Okay, so, yeah, you see the morning? I mean.
Even if I'm awake, I don't usually see in the morning. But Sarah helped me so much because we were talking about this, and I was like, I just can't do it in the morning. And she said, you know, and I'm thinking that I have to get up and I have to write and I have to, and she was like, just lay there and just be grateful while you're still half asleep. And like that's made all the difference because I can do that. Like, I can lay there with my eyes closed and be grateful for the day and set my intentions that way. I don't have to get up and do this big practice. I can do that later in the day. So that was really helpful.
So you actually are doing morning practice now?
I am. It's just, it's not how I thought it needed to look. So.
There you go.
Yeah.
Anything's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, if I can do morning practice, anybody.
Yes, Jane?
I have a terrible time reading spiritual literature. And so right now I'm in a group and we're discussing the segments in 365, you know, the Ernest Holmes book. And it's just little blurred. So what I do is if I just read it in the morning, I don't have a clue what he's talking about. And see, what I have a goal, which is I want to read spiritual literature with some kind of.
Is there some time during the day where it does work for you?
Well, what I've done now is I read it at night, and then I read it again in the morning. And see.
Well, that's great. That's smart. So you read it at night when you really can take it in, and then you read it in the morning, and it's familiar because you read it the night before.
Yeah, and
That's
well.
lovely.
Yeah, my problem is that when I read it the first time, I don't have a clue, so I read it at night and I struggle around with it, and then I figure, well, maybe it'll percolate during the night, and then the next morning I could read it again.
And do you like it when you read it in the morning now?
Yeah, it's a little clearer.
Good for you.
Yeah, and I underline too,
Good for you.
but
That's
it's
great.
just a project.
Everybody's got their way of doing it, and there's no right or wrong way to do spiritual practice. But for me, the thing that makes it work is when it's about me. You know, I'm the one at the center of it. I struggle with what other people, I love reading things like Read Line, that's delightful. And I get good ideas from books and all, so it's not that I don't, but mostly those kinds of things, I would rather ponder my life, reflect on my life, reflect on life itself, and work it from the inside. That really works for me. And I guess that's because spiritual mind treatment, you know, which did not work for me in the beginning, but it's my practice now. And it calls me to know the truth. And I can't rely on what Ernest Holmes says or what anybody else says to do spiritual mind treatment. That isn't what it is. It's about me knowing who I am in the context of life itself. And if I do that work and I remember who I am the best I can at that moment, on that day, then I've got something to work with. And so, you know, I read the Science of Mind magazine, not religiously, but from time to time I'll pick it up and read it. And there's interesting stuff in there, but that's not what drives me. What drives me is knowing inside of me who I am. And if I challenge myself to know that, then I get somewhere. Then I've got something to work with. And so, and then again, there's a statement like I used in my talk yesterday. You know, the idea of purpose. The secret of success is constancy to purpose. That really worked for me, and I've made that work in my life. But for the most part, I have to work from the center of my being. And it's not a physical place, it's the center of my consciousness. That's the place from which I can create anything. And that's where I work from.
Well, I find that if I finally understand it, it gives me a slant on how to view other people. You know, I mean,
Good.
yeah.
Good for you.
But
That's
it's a lot of work. And,
How many of you do spiritual mind treatment? Every day? Yeah, a few hands. That's what works for me. And you know, Barbara's an introvert, I'm an extrovert. So you would think that that wouldn't be compatible with us, but it seems to be. It seems to be that there's something about saying it out loud. And I'm the extrovert, so I would be the promoter of that. But saying it out loud, it somehow helps. So even when I'm in a hotel room by myself, I do my treatments out loud. I'm talking. I actually start them with that song that we always sing, There's Only Love. I sing around to that to myself and go into treatment. And that's what kind of pulls me into it, to say what's going on. Being an extrovert, as I hear it, it's really getting into me. So I always do my treatments, those treatments aloud. And that really works for me. I don't know what Barbara does when I'm not there, as far as whether she's saying them out loud or not, it's not my business. But when I'm with her, she does them out loud. And she's just so elegant. So, and being with her in those moments is just mystical to me. And I'm very visual too. So I see the things that are happening that we're talking about. If I call a minister's name, I see that person. And I see them surrounded with people that love them. Those kind of images for me just really, really work. So you have to craft your spiritual practice to whatever works for you. But what I want you to know is that as important as meditation is to center yourself and to calm your mind, meditation in and of itself, I don't think is enough of a spiritual practice. I've known a number of people that were just really serious meditators, and they were really screwed up. I mean, they were very calm in being screwed up. But they weren't crafting their lives. They were learning how to be in the silence, they were learning how to breathe, and learning how to be in that rhythm, and that's great stuff. But to me, we're creative beings. And the creative part of it is actually to bring something to life. And we do that with our thoughts. We do that with the images we imagine. We do that with our emotional body. We bring those things forth through these tools that we have naturally as our life. Now, most of us are observing, not us, but people in the world are observing life and drawing their conclusions. I want us to draw our conclusions and to reflect that into life and back to us so that that's the way life looks. And it really does work. One of my practitioner students on Saturday was sharing with us that she was starting to think about retirement. And she got, her supervisor called her in and said, we've been bought by another company and they are discontinuing your job. Oh. Wait a minute. And then she realized, well, I said I wanted to retire. But I don't want to retire till June. Well, but you weren't making that clear, were you? And she said, no, we weren't making that clear. She said, so I started doing my spiritual mind treatment saying, and I know, I heard it, the job's gone and they want to offer me another job for less pay to do the same amount of work, but I don't want that. I want my job. I want this thing that I've been doing for all this time to be here, and I'm going to retire in June. She claimed that. And of course, last week, her supervisor called her in and said, we got a little change here. We want you to stay on in this position until the end of May. And we question that we are in charge of our lives. We are in charge of our lives. Yeah, but what happens when this bad thing happens? You did that. I never thought that. I never wanted that. Well, of course you didn't want it, but you were afraid something was gonna go wrong, weren't you? Well, maybe. Yeah. Fear is so strong. It's such a strong energy. It's like wearing a neon sign, screw with me, screw with me, screw with me. It does, that's how it works. So if you're afraid of something, you are beckoning it into your life.
So John, it brings up an interesting thing. When you're in partnership with somebody that's in your family, not my husband, in this case I'm dealing with my mother, who's got a lot of fear coming up.
It's not one thing, it's your mother.
Yeah, there you go. So, we have entered into a transaction together, and I'm building this home with her. So, it seems like every other day I'm talking her off the ledge, and she comes back around. But I have to continue to remind her the truth of who she is, and in her framework, because she's devout Catholic, so that she can understand it.
Right.
And then retain the truth of who I am and not allow that energy to create doubt and fear within myself. And I just wondered if you have any suggestions on dealing with that.
Do you like that she relies on you? Do you like that she sees you as together enough for her to lean on that heart?
It's a mixed bag right now because she had a health condition which continues to be trying for her. So I am choosing to be compassionate, obviously, to my mother, who I love. And so I have that balancing act. I'm not trying, hard to do, not do. Establishing boundaries for me that I know that I have to release sometimes, and I allow her, I said, if this is how you want to be, you can be that.
She is entitled, she
Yeah,
can be
I
who she wants.
choose to see this for you, and then she'll invariably call me the next day and say, I feel so much better, thank you, blah, 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 blah.
So you're in that dance. One way you can just love her through it,
Yeah.
you know, love yourself through it, know that this is gonna be the dance while you're building the house. And then that's okay, that's just what it is. If you say you don't want that, you have lots of options. One, you can discontinue the project.
Well, I'm financially invested.
I understand. But you could.
I could,
Yeah.
but it's not something I'm choosing.
Okay, so that's that one you're choosing not to do.
Yeah.
And so, you can, you know, being clear about who you are and who she is probably the best thing you can do right now. But you're always a choice,
Yeah.
many choices. Many choices. So remember that. If you're ever feeling stuck, remember you chose this. Not as a blame, just that.
Well,
this,
that's where doubt comes in, like, oh my God, did I do the right thing? And then
Too late.
I
you did it.
did.
You
I
agreed to be in
said-
this deal with your mom,
Yeah,
and she's just being the same mom she's always been.
yeah.
So that's not news. So did you make a mistake? No, you made a choice. There are no mistakes. There are choices. Every choice we make creates a response. Every one of them. Some of them we like, some of them we don't. But it's all based on our choices. You know, how could I ever complain about being an elected officer of our organization? I got up there and asked people to make me that.
Sure,
You know, I asked for it, so I got no room to complain,
yeah.
no matter what happens. You know, so that's how it works. And you've chosen this path. You love your mom, she gets crazy, you call her in off the ledge, and see how long this one lasts. You know, and once the project is complete and you have your money in your pocket, think about what you've learned, see if you need to learn it some more. Good for you. Isn't it wonderful? I mean, the dance we play in is pretty amazing.
It is, because I've seen amazing growth within her, which then comes growth within me with awareness, with Elizabeth, yeah. They provide contrast for you, so they're a mirror back to you
Always.
when you've had fear, doubts, or whatever, and then you catch yourself going into that.
That's what family reunions are for, to remind you how well you're doing.
Yeah,
You know, isn't that lovely?
yeah,
Everybody falls into the same old way of seeing everybody. And
yeah.
you're going, wow, I'm outside of this. I see this differently.
Yeah.
I love these people. You know, and I don't need to do what they do.
Yeah.
Isn't that lovely? Yeah, good. Good for you.
it's really, life is all about context.
Mhm.
How do we want to play the game? And if we want to find fault in others, if we want to be vulnerable to others, that's easy. But it's so much nicer to live that life of saying, I'm the presence of God, and so are you.
Yeah.
You choose what you want to do with that. I'm going to play it over here this way. I'm going to be in charge of my life. I'm going to do fun, wonderful things.
And it's funny to see their reaction when you do that, when you claim your power, and then all of a sudden they start thinking, well, me, and then she calls me back 5 minutes later, I'm feeling better now, and I'm like, okay, good.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's all like that. Wonderful. Let's take a break. The conversation's been about spiritual practice and these cool things that Ernest Holmes has been writing about. But the thing that makes Science of Mind distinct from every other religious or spiritual discipline in the world is spiritual mind treatment. It's the way we do our prayer. Some people have said, well, is our prayer and spiritual mind treatment the same? Well, in the sense that champagne, all wine is champagne. I'm sorry, all champagne is wine, right? Every champagne you ever drank was sparkling wine. That's what it is. But not every wine is champagne. So, spiritual mind treatment is prayer. But not all prayer is spiritual mind treatment. See the same? Why would I set that up to say that this thing champagne, known as the high level of wine, someone might disagree, but that's sort of the way it's played, would be more like champagne? Well, because this is a highly structured, but really consciousness-driven concept, spiritual mind treatment. It's something that Holmes started in his own work, and he was, he played with Christian Science and the way they did treatment, the way they had practitioners, and the way others did it, and really came to this idea of not asking, but knowing the truth was the only way to do this. And he had 3 steps, and his steps were very clear and very basic, and they were recognition, I spell that right? Okay, close to that. That's the first step. What do you want to recognize? You want to recognize the presence. And you want to create some level of understanding of what this thing we call God is. But we don't do it like everybody else, or like most people. We don't start looking at something outside of ourselves. Holmes' teacher on that was Thomas Troward, and Troward said that the presence of the divine is present everywhere equally and absolutely. Meaning that there's not a little bit of God where you are. All of God is where you are. All of God, the creative force of the universe, is where you are. And that's where you work from. Is this idea that recognizing that presence in whatever way you can, allowing that never to be settled on, but to always go deeper, go more grandly into this understanding of the divine. Whatever you can imagine God is, imagine that and more. That's the work of the recognition step, is to have this relationship with this absolute allness. How do you do that? Well, you never completely do that. No one can do it all the way. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing that we are in constant pursuit of understanding the divine. That's what they do in monasteries when they're not having sex. Which is supposed to be all the time, right? So, the idea is that the monastic life is about focusing on the presence of the divine. That's it. That's why they say they're there. And whatever you can do, you can do. I'm not sure that's the best environment for it, but that's what some people do. So the idea is we're all set to do that. Our work is to be aware of the presence of the divine. To be aware that there's something great going on. There's something extraordinarily powerful going on, something that is absolute, whatever that concept absolute is, that's the recognition of the divine. That's where we work from. There's a wonderful thing that I love to throw at people, and probably many of you have already heard me talk about this, there are two philosophies that kind of diverge at the point of science of mind. There's this one level of understanding that's called pantheism. Have you heard of pantheism? Who wants to tell me what pantheism is? You know, Jane?
Sure.
Weren't you a college professor at one time?
No, well, sort of.
Okay. What's pantheism?
It's the belief that God is in everything.
It's the belief that God is everything.
Is everything.
That's it. Sounds pretty good, right? Well, Holmes didn't believe that. But there are a lot of very famous people that did believe that. I think Aristotle believed that. Many great philosophers and cosmologists believe that God is everything. And then there's this.
Didn't you just say that's what recognition was?
We're talking about recognition right now. No, I didn't ever say those specific words.
Oh, that's what I wrote down.
Well, that's what most people do right now. God is all there is.
Okay.
You know, and that's a great statement. I'm not taking anything away from that. But there's a perception that's even greater than that. It's called panentheism. What that means is that all is in God. That God is something greater than everything. And if you think about it, if there's this creative force in the universe, it would have to be greater than everything it created. Panentheism. Yeah. So God is, or everything that is exists within God. So Holmes is a panentheist, and I like that idea. I like that, and that helps us even to go beyond the idea that we could ever perceive the entire presence of God. We can't. However, there's also this other angle that at every point, this is the Troward point, that at every point the absolute presence exists in its totality. Try to wrap your mind around that. However, whatever you can do with it is better. So that's why we start our prayers from that recognition. Play with these ideas. Think about what is God. Because the next step is critical once you've established something in the first step. And that's whatever you said was in recognition, you identify within yourself. Identification. Meaning that whatever God is, that is what I am. And that's a reasonable statement from the angle that if God is absolutely present in its absolute sense at every point, then it must be at the point of view. Now, we can have so much fun with this idea, because if we started with step 2 and said, I am God, they would lock you up. Because that's crazy. How can I be God? But the idea is that God becomes human. Humans don't become God. It doesn't start at the point of us. And if you think about how Western theology evolved, this idea of a single God, that man is made in the image of God, that's all kind of based on that idea that we know who we are, so God must be like us. So God must have made us from what God is. And so God starts looking human. And that's not what God is. So God is something so much greater than that. So we don't get caught up in personality here. We simply know that the presence of the divine, whole and complete, dwells at the point of us. We are the divine. And that means, and this is really important for me, that once I recognize the presence of the divine, once I, at whatever level I can, identify myself as that presence, then I speak with that authority. So whatever I say are the words of God. That's cool. If you can do that in a prayer, that is so much better than asking a God outside of you for something. To claim that whatever you're saying is so is actually so. If you can believe that when you say it, you create it. The only limitation to who we are is our own sense, or lack of sense of who we are. The truth is that we are the divine, whole and complete, absolute in every way. We just get caught up in this physical experience, this three-dimensional experience that holds our thinking by our own choice. We choose to think this is real. And by doing that, we are left in this state that this is real.
and that we can get the flu, and that someone can run into our car, and blah, 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 blah. And sure, all those things can happen, but only if we're in a state to receive that outcome, that outpicturing of consciousness. I read a letter from Holmes on stage yesterday. Do you notice the beginning of it? It said, I would have written you earlier, but I got sick for the first time in my life. The man was 72 years old. He said he never had gotten sick in his life. Of course, 31 days later, he died. He transitioned. So he was making his plans, and that's why he got sick, was so this was his exit strategy. But in that moment, he's going, this sick thing, I don't get it. He'd never done it before, you know? Pretty cool. And he wasn't any more able to do that than any of us. So he was onto something. And he used this formula. Now the third step, of course, is where once I have some sense of what this divine presence is, and I identify myself as that presence, not exclusively, but at the point of me, I know that this is who I am. We are way ahead of the ballgame right there. But as we move into our third step, our work is to realize what is already so. Our work is not to create something new. Our work is not to declare and decree and to make something happen. It is never our job to make something happen. That's hard work. That's really hard work. No, our job in treatment is simply to realize what already is. Now, chances are you haven't seen it yet, at least in this particular case. This thing that you're claiming and realizing is already so, maybe be eluding your senses to that point. But this is the time to see it. So whatever you do, whether you in your mind can see it or feel it, or by saying it, you declare that authority, by whatever means you do that in your treatment. This is the truth. I declare this is so. This is the truth. I don't have to work at it. I'm simply realizing it's already so. If all of you saw the movie What the Bleep, where the balls are bouncing all over the place as possibilities, all those possibilities exist simultaneously. You just choose which one you want to put your attention on and claim to be so. You're creating your reality. That's how it works. And you don't have to know the details. You don't have to know who's going to do it. You don't have to know when it's going to hit your email or your mailbox or whatever. You don't need to know where the money's coming from. You just need to know it's here. You don't need to know that it's coming. God, don't do that. I already told you the Unity story about the help is on the way. It's not. The truth is it's already here. This is one of the odd things about treatment that people struggle with. But the truth is that you must know it in the present, because if you know it in the future, then your mind is holding it off in the future. And that's where it has to stay until you claim it in this now moment. So, and it's part of our lexicon to say, it's coming. And we say it all the time, but you can't, if you do that in treatment, you're actually keeping it at bay. So don't do that. Don't ever treat that something's coming, because then it's all busy coming, not being. You want it to be. Yes, Susan?
Just something strange. The wonderful song that we sing on Sundays, Get Ready.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I hear myself saying, I am ready.
There you go. Sing I'm ready.
I am. Yeah, because
Do it. There's actually been talk about changing that. It probably will happen.
When you're ready.
Yeah, it's like I saw a card recently, and I used to love it, and I would have it in my office, and it was the best is yet to come. And I think Barbara may have even spoken about it, and I thought that was just great. But now,
Yeah,
here.
the best is here right now. Yeah, I know, it's a little game, but honestly, it makes such a difference.
I'm waiting.
You know, and you're waiting, you know?
Waiting.
Yeah, and hoping.
Right.
Hoping. It's such an elegant word. But it leaves us in a state of not having. So the work in consciousness is to have, to be, to see and experience that absolutely in consciousness, which is reflected then in physical form. You know, there was a story about somebody who won the lottery 3 times, a couple. They won the I don't know where they were, but they won the lottery 3 times. When they interviewed them and said, how can this be? They said, because what we do, every time we get a lottery ticket, we take it home and we scream how happy we are that we won the lottery. And they experience in their physical bodies winning the lottery. So they kept winning. Crazy. You know, but that was there. Now, can everybody do that? Probably. Will everybody do that? No. Because you go, yeah, well, this is the stupidest thing. Because it isn't real for them. The thing is, make it real. Whatever you do, make it real. So in your treatment work, you make it real. And that's what makes it real. That's what reflects it into your life. Yes?
Wasn't that the couple that the third time they won, they had bought a ticket to show the news reporter what they did to win the lottery, and then they won all the tickets?
Probably. Just, you know, just outrageously wonderful. And it's all consciousness. And that's how consciousness is revealed. We make it real. So what do you want to make real? That's the question. So it's that way. I know there's some presence and power in the universe that creates everything. I know that dwells in me. It is me. It's who I am. I am that power. So I speak with that power, and this is what I realized. That was Holmes' thing right there. He was done. He did that. He would do it till he got it. He would do it over and over and over again until he was absolutely clear that it was so. And when the man treated, the realization showed up. The revelation showed up. The demonstration showed up. It always showed up. To where he had no patience with people that couldn't do it. He actually told Bill Hornaday, his heir apparent, on many occasions to go back and take first year again. He said, you don't have it. Go take first year. I mean it. Take it now. Because obviously Hornaday had questions. He had doubts. And Holmes had no space for that. He said, this is how it works. And he was right. This is how it works. There's no, see, this is so simple. So friggin' simple. If we would live from this all the time, we would have everything that we wanted. But we choose somehow not quite to get there. Oh, giving into it. Now, the last two, just so we're complete on this, he had one student named Warren Moen. He was the minister at the church in Oakland. And Dr. Moen said that his students felt incomplete with those 3 steps. And what they had come up with is they wanted to be grateful, so they created a Thanksgiving step. Or gratitude, either way works. Whatever you want to call it. And then there was a need to release. Important stuff, really does work. The idea of gratitude is not a polite thing. Thank you very much. As though there's something outside of you that did something, because the initiation of the law happens in you and as you. That's how it works. But being grateful tells your subjective mind that you already have it. You're not grateful for things you don't have. You may be grateful for the promise of something that you've been promised. You'd be grateful for the promise, but you're not grateful for the thing until you have it. It's impossible. What are you being grateful for? I'm really grateful that I'm going to have a new car in 3 years. I may be grateful for the idea, but I'm not grateful for the car because I don't have it. So the idea is if you can see it, if you can feel it, if you can speak it with absolute certainty, knowing that it is so, and then you can be grateful for it, you're sealing the deal. You're sealing the deal by telling yourself, I'm grateful for this, and I must already have it. It's still illogical in our culture, but when you do it in treatment, it actually adds to the process. It's a little way of, I say tricking your subjective mind. It's not really a trick, but it really does tell you that you already have it, that it's already true, it's already existing. And that helps. And then you release it, because if you held on to it, if you maintain this need to know how it's going to happen, if you worked on all that, then it could only happen according to what you already know.
It could only come, the money can only come through your job, because that's the only way you get money, quote unquote. It can only happen if the doctor tells you that it's okay for it to happen. No, 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 no. You simply know it's so. Whatever it is, whether it's something about health, something about money, something about relationship, something about your work in the world, whatever it's about, you let it go, this idea, and you allow it to have every possibility for showing up in your life. There was a story I heard a few years ago of a guy who had a miserable job. His supervisor, he just couldn't work with this guy. And he was getting support from his minister, and the minister did the treatment that said that he had the most wonderful supervisor. And he agreed to that, he agreed with it, and he went into work the next day, and his supervisor had been transferred. Now, he had no power to transfer his supervisor. He had no authority. He had no part in that. But by knowing that he had a supervisor he could work with, only one of two things could happen. Either his supervisor would come into his office and say, you know, I haven't been treating you well, I really want to recreate this relationship, or the supervisor would have to leave by some means. Either way, any of that works. It doesn't matter what it is. And you can't start dictating which way it happens. That's not part of this process. If you do, then it can only happen according to your consciousness, and then it can only happen once everything else in the universe aligns to your consciousness. That's a long way. Let's not do that. Let's go ahead and be open to any possibility for how it happens. Now, when you do your treatment work, the idea, as I read in Holmes's book, is you still have to stick with it. You still have to act as if. You don't do your treatment and then go off and be miserable. You must act as though that's so. And that's what allows that to happen. Because because everything you do really is a treatment. Every thought you have is a treatment. So if you get a treatment from a practitioner or a minister, or you do your own treatment work, and you are clear that this is so, but then you turn around and act contrary to that, fall into the trap of being afraid, being confused, being uncertain. If you fall into that trap and don't act as though that thing in consciousness that you have known, then you have a new treatment. And the new treatment is, nothing's changing here. Because I'm still afraid. I'm still lost. Yes, Laura.
Is number 3 realization the same thing as belief?
I would, well, yes, it absolutely is. What we believe is what we create our life at. So we must believe it. I think a more powerful word in that spot is knowing. Yeah. But what I'm knowing is something that already exists. That's the beauty of the word realizing. I just realized it was already done. Whoa, there's no effort there. It's easy, you know? And most of those other words, declare, decree, and even affirmation, seem to have an effortfulness to them. And what you really want to do is, no, it's already that way. And I can do that. I can close my eyes and see something being a different way than they said it was before, but this is what they want. I can see them. I can see them driving that car. I can see them smiling and laughing and window down and arm hanging out the window and just having a wonderful summer day in that beautiful car. I can just see it. And then when they call me and say, hey, I got the new car, I'm not surprised. Of course you did.
And the word now is in knowing.
Yes, yes, the word now is in knowing, and what you want is for it to be here now. And in that moment I said, I can see that on a summer day. Well, I can see summer right now. I can feel it. Can you do that? Can you close your eyes and just feel the warmth of the sun beating on your face? I can. I can do that. If you can do that, you have the creative ability to create anything in your life. Yes, Kevin.
For me, very interesting that kind of treatment what we're doing most of the time, just unconsciously, not even thinking, just creating.
Right.
This is all about our present consciousness.
Yes.
When we're doing this, we expanding our consciousness into a different level, and that's what makes it good and bring it in. If we can expand our consciousness into that level, we are successful.
Right. You'll notice if you work with a practitioner that they never say the word you. You know why? They're not having a conversation with you.
You're witnessing their consciousness at work, knowing something about you, but they are not talking to you. They're doing it whether you're there or not. They're knowing the truth about you, but they are not talking to you. Because a conversation like we're having now is one level of consciousness. Treatment is an entirely different level of consciousness. You go to a different place. There's a wonderful story about Maya Angelou when her son was in the hospital and the doctors were trying to convince her that he would never walk again. And she just got in the doctor's face and said to him, "You can't even go to where I am." And what she was saying was, I have a consciousness that can create a change in this condition. You don't. And he didn't. He was well trained. He was a skilled physician, but he could not go to that place with her. So he said that this guy was going to just be an invalid, and she walked him out of that hospital. That's the ability we have. We have to know it. We have to count on it. And we have to let nothing have any supremacy over that in our lives. Not doctors or attorneys or judges or police or anybody. And it's not that we're being defiant, we're simply knowing something greater than those around us know.
How do you account though, we can do that for ourselves, but in this case, when she's treating for her son, he would have to give her basically his, we'll use the word permission, or that he too chooses what she sees.
Well, that's
There's free will.
yes and no. We have the ability to create in other people's lives. That's what treatment is, and it's done by agreement. Because someone comes and says, "Will you treat for me?" to a practitioner, and then they sit down and they create this together.
Sure.
But we can create things in other people's lives. And what Will Rocky Bear called that was conjuring, and he wouldn't do it. And I don't treat for people without their agreement. Although I can know for anyone that they are experiencing perfection in their lives. They're experiencing exactly what they need to be where they need to be and to do what they need to do. That doesn't get in their way. That's simply me knowing that they're doing exactly what they need to do. In this particular case, I don't know if she had some agreement with him. I don't know if it was a mother-son thing. I don't know. But we do have the ability to impact other people's lives. There have been studies done on that. There have been studies done with teachers. There was something done in New England. I don't remember the name of the study, but what it was is that a professional came in and said, "Okay, we're going to test all of your students. We're going to let you know which ones are the really brilliant ones and which ones are the kind of average or below average ones. And we're going to divvy them up, and certain of you will be the teachers working with the advanced students, and some of you will be working with the ones that aren't." And so they tested them, they broke them into these groups, they had them in these groups for a year, and they tested them again at the end of the year. The first test was bogus. There was nothing. They just randomly divided these kids into brilliant and not. By the end of 1 year with a teacher that had that expectation, they all lived up or down to that level. Every one of them. Amazing. Created some lawsuits for that guy too. People didn't like their kids being said that they were less than good enough and dumbed them down. But it made a point. It made a point. So the expectations of the teachers actually had an impact on the students' ability to learn and produce in class. That's happening all the time.
So if we see the God within people and hold that in consciousness, then they can feel that vibration and potentially rise to that level.
As a practitioner, it has nothing to do with a license. As a practitioner of the science of mind, I practice this teaching, these principles in my life. It would be unethical for me to see anyone less than God. That would be unethical for me, to see someone as being anything less than God. Sometimes that's hard. Sometimes I really want to see somebody as a pathetic nothing. But it's unethical. I can't do that. I offered to do it once. I was in Ukraine, and we'd had this wonderful event on the Black Sea, and we were leaving, and I had an interpreter that was interpreting my everything that I did into Russian and back to me in English. And he was kind of depressed as I was getting on the bus to leave. And I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "This has been so wonderful, now life is going to be really hard again." Why would that be? I don't understand. He said, "Well, it's the yin and the yang. This was wonderful, and now it's going to be difficult." I said, it doesn't have to be that way. Oh, yeah, it does. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I'm arguing with him. I go, wait a minute. And then I remember something that Rocky Bear said to me once. I said, okay, is this what you want? Okay. I will see you having a miserable life. I will see you suffering and everything being hard for you. And if that's what you want, I'll do that. I love you so much, that's what I'll do. And I got on the bus. So I'm sitting there relieving, tap, tap, tap on the window. And I look down at him, he says, okay, we'll do it your way. So now he lives in America. He's completed college. He was just a kid then. I think he has an engineering degree. His wife is the chief financial officer of 20th Century Fox. And he's a very happy young man. So I'm glad we did it my way. That's how life works, you know. What do you want to? How do you want it to be? What are you willing to let go of in your limiting thoughts, to let that be the truth of your life? That's what we're into. That's what this is about. It's not complicated. And it is as easy or difficult as you want it to be. And I still am in the dance, so I get it, you know. I can grumble. I can see, oh, woe is me. But I do it a whole lot less than I ever have before. And that's the way I like it. So I'm going to keep doing this. And the beauty of being before you, teacher, whatever you want to call me here, is that this calls me to account. To not play less game, not to hide. You know, and I'm sure we have teachers in our movement that teach these principles, yet live very unhappy lives. And that's hard, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But my job is to know who I am, to know who you are, to know who they are, and to live from that place of knowing. And if I can do that, then I can have this happy, wonderful life where I'm living my purpose. And that's what I want. So you have to decide what you want. Yes, Jane?
You said living your purpose. What do you mean by purpose?
You were here yesterday, weren't you?
Sunday lesson.
You were here yesterday, right?
Were you here yesterday?
For my talk?
Yeah, but I have a terrible memory.
Well, only if you want to.
Well, yeah.
You and I will talk about that after class, okay?
Oh, sure, okay.
Not that I wouldn't like to continue talking about that. Are there any other things that are popping up for people?
Would
Yes,
you
Elizabeth?
just elaborate on your details about release?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. That was the piece I was talking about how if we hang on to it, we're gonna have to know how it's gonna happen. It's never about that. You know, there's all kind of angles on release, releasing anything that's in the way of it showing up, but also just releasing the idea that it's ours to do. Holmes says somewhere in the reading this week that ours to do is simply to know. Now, I think that's an oversimplification. I think that we have to be actively working toward the thing that we want, but I don't think that it's reliant on what we're doing for it to happen. I think that keeps us occupied in that direction. It's our thinking that creates it. To be absolutely accurate to the way we understand this working, which is all made up anyway, but is that it's not our thought so much as our thought impresses upon this divine presence, this matrix of whatever it is that the mechanics of the universe are. We call it the law. So we impress our thought upon the law, and then the law reflects it back into our life. That's how we say it. The law of correspondence, the law of cause and effect, the law of, what's it called, that Abraham does? The law of attraction. It's all the same law. It's just different ways of perceiving how this works. And they're all fine as far as thoughts. But the idea is that when you have an idea, when you have a perception, the more you develop that idea in your thinking and see it as absolutely real, the more you're giving the universe to give it back to you. You know? So that's really important. I would say in this idea of realization that it is really important to not get specific to the individual or the object. Meaning, if you want a new car, don't treat for the red one that's in the third space at the car lot.
don't treat to have that car. That's limiting your possibilities. If you want to be in a personal relationship with somebody, don't treat for it to be that guy Jack. Don't do that. Because sure enough, you can create that, and then you'll find out that Jack is an asshole. Treat for the qualities you want in the relationship. And not only for the qualities you want in that person, but for the qualities that you will express in that relationship as you. That's even more important. Because that's the thing that makes it all work. You know, sometimes you get in a relationship, I know people that have gotten in a relationship with a person that exactly matched who they said they wanted, but they weren't up to being with someone like that. So you gotta really work on yourself too. I mean, that's the most important part. Yes, David?
My dad gave me a good explanation of the last step release, and just, he always called it live as if it's real, because it is. And he said it'd be like treating with someone for them to have the car they want, and them having the car in their driveway and never driving it, just choosing not to use it after they got it.
I got a great story on cars. We had a member of this, he's still a member of this center, went through a financial downturn, didn't have the ability to get credit, but needed a car. And there was a guy that was willing to sell him a car on terms. And he came to me and said, would you treat that I got that car? I said, I can't do it. I said, why not? It's there, I want that car. I said, well, I don't know that car, so it's unethical for me to treat for that car. I will treat that you have a car that has the qualities that you say that car has, that it runs well, that it is in good mechanical shape, that it's got, you know, whatever qualities you like. I'll treat that all day long. He said, okay, and then I'll just go get the car. I said, well, okay, so we did the treatment, and the guy sold the car to somebody else. So what happened? Well, my treatment was real. He's driving down some road here in Asheville, passes a car lot, sees the exact same kind of car, goes in there. He doesn't have credit. These people have a special program for people who are trying to recover their credit. We can work it out with him, because he says, you're not going to believe what happened. Well, actually, I did believe what happened. You know, and he got the car that he wanted. It worked for him. It wasn't, but I won't treat for that specific car. I'll get back to you, Breezy. In the back, you had your hand up, sir.
Yeah, earlier tonight you made the comment, think about God and reflect on what God is. And I realized tonight made myself more aware of how important recognition truly is. When we're young, in my religion we were taught catechism, seek God's will for your life. And of course the next question is, well, what's God's will? You're always struggling in, am I doing the right thing? What should I be doing? Blah, blah, blah. Well, if you're in tune with the fruits of the Spirit, and you're in touch with God, and you go through identification, whatever you realize, because it's God working through you, or you're in alignment with God, you will be doing God's will. It's that simple. You don't struggle with it anymore, because you know the fruits of the Spirit, you are in line with them, you accept them working through you. And it just hit me tonight how you don't have to struggle with God's will, because if you're doing this, you're already doing God's will, or you will be doing God's will, because you can't get out of sync with God, because it's working through you and you're in sync with it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
You're why I got up this morning. I'm not going to hear you say that and say that's a revelation in your life. Good
Yes.
for you. I love that.
It's not a struggle anymore.
No, it doesn't. There is no, a struggle is all conceived and contrived. We create our struggle. If there is a will of God for us, it's that we know who we are. What else is there to know? Because once we know who we are, we get it. So the whole idea of the human experience to me is the revelation of the divine, so that it may know itself. That's us. We do that. We, and who knows how many other species in the universe. But right here, it's about us. So yeah, that's to me the only thing it could possibly be, because if I am the presence of the divine and you are the presence of the divine, all that is for us to know is to see that in one another and to see it in ourselves. And we have done our work. But I don't know where that ends. I don't know how that shows up in its absolute state. So I have to keep moving toward it. But truly, The reason I do this work is to hear someone say what you just said. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Gracie, what do you want to say?
I had just a question real quick. I was wondering if you would, because this is a while back, if you would be able to repeat what you said, because I really liked it, but I couldn't remember it long enough.
I can't remember what I just said.
It says,
So-
what are you willing to let go of? And then you had a condition.
Limitations is what he said, what limitations?
What limiting
What's
thoughts?
limiting
Sure.
thoughts?
And everything in physical form is a limiting thought. It's a thing, and so much of it we never think about. Like, one of the things I love to do when I'm teaching this class on an 8-week period is I want everybody to write down what you believe. I give that to you as an assignment. And you go, huh? And that's true. You cannot write down everything you believe because it's only relevant when there's a question or a situation before you that causes you to remember what you believe. Otherwise, you have this entire consciousness that seems to disappear, but it doesn't. It's there. You believe these things, whether you're thinking about them or not, and they are holding you in an understanding of the universe. So the task is always, when those thoughts come up that are limiting, that I can't, or it won't, or in any way that that everything isn't possible, that somehow there's a limitation, you gotta get rid of that thought. You gotta remember who you are. That all limitations are contrived. All of them. All of them. Yes?
In terms of not micromanaging when you're doing treatment, how does that fit in with the practitioner who treated for the exact date she wanted to retire?
She said what she wanted. I don't know that I would have said that she was treating that day, but she got clear about what she wanted. You know, that she wanted to work to June. So she saw herself working till June. You know, and you're right, that's a game with time. But she never really lost her job. There was no glitch in there at all. You know, so yeah, we live in those limiting ideas of time and space. You know, we live in that, we couldn't be in physical form if there wasn't time and space. So that's part of the game. At the same time, we can create what we want now. We can, and the clearer we are, the quicker it shows up. Don't go off on a guilt trip. It hasn't shown up, obviously I'm not clear. Don't play that game. Just be clear. Just say, there's a little game I play with everybody I treat. I probably don't do it every time, but many times I will listen to what they say is going on. I will listen to what they want. And I will go, that's easy, I can do that. Here, give me your hands, let's do it. It's like, you can? You can just know that? Yes, I can. But by saying that to them, suddenly they're off guard that, oh my God, I can let go of all of this. He can know it right now. And that opens us up to having it happen right now. And usually it happens pretty doggone quick. Because we've let down the resistance. The resistance seems so natural. It seems so a part of life. This has never really worked out well for me. Whatever it is. To have that thought hold you in that place of it not working out well. And you think you're just speaking the obvious. If you're not, you're limiting your outcome. You're absolutely doing it, not even knowing you're doing it. The trick is, be the consciousness police for you. And work on seeing when you're being limiting. Because we do it all the time. And when we don't, those precious moments when we don't, something shifts. Something wonderful happens. It's happening all the time. Yay. Yes, Elizabeth.
Do you think there are phases in your life where you're not sure what you want? Like, it's been this slow crawl. I mean, there have been times when I've known what I wanted, and I get it. You know, it's an absolute thing.
There's been a lot of work done on that shows that we are in cycles in our lives. You know, and the native people teach the medicine wheel of the directions, and all of that has ebbs and flows in it. So it's not that you can't. You can do whatever you choose. But there's times when it's nice just to sit back. And then there's times when it's really wonderful to take action.
Well, it seems like you've talked about this some before, like, there are all these possibilities.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
this, like that, you know.
It can be overwhelming.
The energy, yeah, it's like, and I become afraid to pick one because I have to eliminate all the other ones, or I think I do. You know, it's like, want it. Do I want it? Do I really want it?
Sometimes people come to me with a laundry list of things to treat for. And I find that that's pretty convoluted. In fact, I just recently read a book by Gary Keller called The One Thing. It's a brilliant little book. I read it in a day on the beach. It was a lovely place to read it. Where he talks about how people that are trying to multitask are really not good at it. And that people who focus on saying, this is the thing. There's lots of things in my life I love to create, but this is what I'm focused on right now. This is where I'm going to put my energy. This is where my commitment is. That when people do that, that they have an extraordinarily higher sense of success. Because they are not convoluted in the multiplicity of life. They are saying, this is the thing I want to accomplish. And I will put my energy every day into this. I'll do the other things. I'll do my job. I'll take care of my family. I'll do all the things I have to do. But I'm going to focus on this every day.
And isn't that the thing that just keeps popping up, like you talked about?
Oh yeah, it's
yesterday,
annoying
both
how much
ends.
it pops up.
Okay.
Until you'll just like surrender to it and do it.
Okay.
I got one of those going on in my life right now. And I tell you, when I surrendered to it and moved into actually taking action, my life just shifted. It's like, this is wonderful. You know, so yeah, so, you know, and again, there's the ebbs and flows times. Don't think that every day of your life you're going to get up and be this creative monster that goes out and does all kinds of stuff. No, be gentle on yourself. This is a lovely journey through life. You know, and know that you're in charge. You're absolutely in charge. What do you want to do today? You know, I want to blow bubbles today. Okay, blow bubbles today. It's really okay. This has been delightful. Thank you so much for coming and letting me chatter. I had a great time. I have these beautiful baskets. Well, I picked up the mail today, and there were envelopes from people that came in today. 4 envelopes came in, so I put one in each basket. So these wonderful beloveds who send money through the mail to us are sharing this moment with us. So here's what I want to know right now. There's a power and a presence in the universe. It is greater than the universe. And as specific as me, and the greatest presence and the innermost presence are the same presence. This is what we know. We know that is whole and complete and perfect in every way dwells at the point of each of us. We are blessed in this knowing. We are blessed in the receiving of this knowledge to live our lives according to a greater understanding than most people. We are blessed to know that we are the creators of our lives. We are the captains of our ships. We are the ones that are creating these magnificent, wonderful, meaningful lives. So we come together on Monday night, and we share these ideas together. And we leave here filled up with a great possibility for who we are. And we turn that into something wonderful in our lives. And in this moment, as we pass these baskets, it's just a moment to say thank you, to flow into this community, to know that this that we do has great significance in our lives. And that the world gets better when we get clearer. What a great way to impact the world. This is who we are. We are the beloved, and we shine. And so it is. My goodness, y'all are well trained. Making sound, I love it. These baskets are filled with money, they're filled with envelopes, they're filled with checks, but all of it's God. There's this divine flow that happens in life where we open up to receive and things flow to us and we turn around and we share the blessings of our lives We do it with our money, we do it with our time, we do it with the gifts and talents that we have. And in this moment, we do it at Center for Spiritual Living Asheville. And there's something sweet and wonderful. It's as though we've all come together in this one collection of baskets to say yes to life. And as we return these gifts and say thank you with them, I know that only good comes to us. Only good. And we let ourselves now leave this beautiful place and return to other ways and parts of our lives, to people that we love, to places that we are safe and secure in. And everything's working because everything's getting clearer, and life is getting sweeter, and love is getting more available in our thinking and in our actions. So we claim our divinity. We claim the love that swirls around us and fills us up. We claim a great and wonderful life because that's who we are. We are the presence of the divine. And we accept that. We are so grateful. And we let it be so as we let it go into the allness